Okay, for our first one, for Term 2 Exam 2, we have fill in the blanks with the integers from the number line. So integers are all the positive numbers over here, all the negative numbers over here, and 0. So they're the whole numbers and their opposite, so it doesn't include fractions, just the whole numbers and their opposites. First thing we can do is actually go ahead, since we have a couple numbers here, we can write in the rest of our numbers, and when we write the integers going backwards, we just mirror, so 1 first, so -1 first, -2 second, -3 third, -4, -5. So for A is right here, so A is a -1. B is over here, that's a +5, and it can be written as a 5 or it can have a plus in front of it. Either is correct. C is a +1 and D is a -4. So all they need to do is choose the correct spot on the line. For number 2, we're just writing integers. So once again, the integers are 0 and our positive numbers, and then our negative numbers. So the first one says 50 feet below sea level. Below means it goes down below. So we can always think of a number line like this with 0, and 50 feet would be down below, so that would be the negative. So that's a -50. For next one, earning $5, that means you're getting $5, so that would be a +5, or once again you can just write a 5. A discount, that means they're taking money off the price, so that is -30. Then 12 people leaving a party, that's going to be a -12. So just have to decide whether if the amount is going up or going down. So here they went down below sea level. Here your amount of money in your pocket went up. Here they took the price down. Here the number of people at the party went down. Okay, for number 3. Number 3 can be a little bit more complicated. There are a couple ways to do it. One way is simply to go ahead and create a number line. 0 and then our integers 1, 2, 3, and -1, -2, -3. And then we're going to go ahead and put these numbers on the number line. So once again, this is our negative side and this is our positive side. So any number over here is greater than 0, any number over here is less than 0. So we have, first of all, 3 different negative numbers that we're going to put on here. So for this, we can see this one's just a fraction, so it's going to be closest to 0. So -3/4 is not quite 1, that's less than 1. 3/4 is less than $1. So 3/4 is actually going to be closer to 1 than it is 0. So our -3/4 is going to go right here. So 3/4 of the way toward 1. Now both of these are just past the 1, so we're going to go all the way past the 1 and then land somewhere else beyond it. So the first one is -1 and 1/4. So we go one whole jump, and then if this were 4 separate spaces, we'd only go one of those spaces. So we're going to be right here for -1 and 1/4. So we're only 1/4 of the way to 2. And these, of course, the -1 and -2. So our next one is -1.4. So we can go ahead and take this, and it's going to also be between 1 and 2, and we decide where on the line it will be. Well, 1.5 would be halfway between 1 and 2. So 1.4 is almost halfway. So this then would be right down here, -1.4. Okay. Now we have our whole numbers. So first of all, we have this right here, 0.06. So once again, it's less than 1. It's 0.6. So 0.5, once again, is halfway. So it's a little bit more than halfway between 0 and 1. So that's going to be halfway right there. So we'll just put it a little bit beyond halfway. So 0.6. Then we have 3.2. So this is over to 3, 1, 2, 3, and then a little bit more. So this is just 2/10. So that is going to be a lot closer to the 3 than it would be to a 4. So 3.2 would be right about in here. Now, our next one is 60%. So we have to think about how we're going to do that. So we can go ahead and take this and make it into a fraction if we want, which would be 60 over 100, which is 6/10, or 3/5. So once again, this is less than 1. It's a fraction less than 1. Okay, so 3/5, we'd have to kind of decide where that would go with the 0.6. Another thing we can actually do is, since this is a decimal, we could turn this into a fraction to compare it. So if we turn this into a fraction, it would be 6/10. And 6/10 is actually the same as this. So actually, 60% is going to be the same as 6/10. Okay? So those two would be the same. So in order to put them in order, since we have ascending order, that means we're going up. So we're starting with the least and going to the greatest. So by putting it on the number line here, we actually already have these in order. So we can see our first one is negative 1.4. Our second one on the number line is negative 1 1/4. Then our next one on the number line is negative 3/4. Our next one, both of these are the same spot. So we could put 0.6 and then 60%, or we could have these backwards. It wouldn't make a difference because they're both identical. And then finally we have 3 2/10. So that's one way that we can go ahead and solve this problem. Now another way we could solve this problem is we could make all of these the same so we could compare them. So we could, if we chose to, make each of these into fractions and get a common denominator. So for instance, we could make this into 6/10, and we could make this into negative 1 1/4, which we could then do 1 times 4 is 4 plus 1 is 5. So that's equal to negative 5/4. And once we got them all done, here 1.4 would be 1 4/10. So 1 times 10 is 10 plus 4 is 14/10. And this would be 3 2/10. So 3 times 10 is 30 plus 2 is 32/10. And then 60 over 100. Now we'd have to find a common denominator. So if we were to go ahead on these and find a common denominator, we could see that 100 would work. We could also, okay, so if we made them into 100, we'd have 60 over 100. Then on the next one here, to make this into 100, we'd have to multiply by 25. So this would be multiplied by 25. 125 over 100. This one right here, we could just, actually on this one we could just go through and add a 0 and have 140 over 100. Same here, 320 over 100. And then on this one here, it's 60 over 100. So once we have gone through and done each of these, and we get once a negative 3/4 over 100, once again times 25, so we multiply the numerator times 25, and we get negative 75 over 100. So that one, so now we have all of these as over 100, and this one is negative, this one's negative, and then of course our first one over here is going to be negative. So now we're going to have our largest negative first, so that would be negative 140. So that gives us our negative 1.4, because that was what this one was. Then the negative 125, because all we now have to look at actually is, since these are the same, we only have to look at our top numbers. So it's like eliminating that. So we have 1.4, then 100 negative 1.25, so that makes negative 1 1/4. Then we have the negative 75, so that's the negative 3/4. Then our next one, now we're counting up. Both of these are 60, so we can have it, once again, either way. So 60% and 0.6, or these could be switched. And then of course, 320 is our largest number, so 3.2. And we could also do this by taking and making this into making these all into percents if we wanted to. To make anything into a percent, all you need to do is multiply it by 100%. So we could take this, cross cancel to 1 and 25, and we get 3 times 25, which is 75, add the percent sign and the negative. So we get negative 75%. And we could change all these into percents and do that way also. So they could be all decimals, all percents, all fractions, or we can just do it on a number line. So many different ways to do it. Any of them are correct.